I never expected a day that began with spilled coffee and a half-hearted apology to end with me dangling from a cliff in the middle of nowhere. But there I was, heart pounding, arms gripping a jagged rock, while someone impeccably dressed, annoyingly calm, reached out and yanked me to safety. "Do you have any idea how stupid that was?" he said, brushing dirt off his suit like it wasn't the end of my life he'd just prevented. His tone was sharp, laced with irritation, but I could feel it trembling beneath the surface, like he was trying to contain something he didn't want to admit. I thought I could handle it," I mumbled, embarrassed. Not the brightest excuse, I knew. "You thought wrong." He stepped back, and for a moment, I just stared at him. Jonathan Reyes, the young lawyer everyone whispered about in town for his brilliance and arrogance. He had dark, stormy eyes, like he carried a permanent weight, and now those eyes softened just enough that I almost forgot I wanted nothing to do with romance or complications. We drove back in silence, the car humming with tension. I stole glances at him from the corner of my eye. Jonathan had this strange way of commanding a car without speaking. His presence alone made the air feel thicker, more urgent. And God, I hated that I noticed. By the time we pulled up to the small, well-kept house of my boyfriend's family, my hands were still shaking. His father, Richard, had a heart attack just days ago, and it was Jonathan who insisted on driving me out of town to the cliffside emergency, making sure I survived. "You saved him?" I whispered, not sure if I was more grateful or angry. "You really saved him." Jonathan leaned against the car, crossing his arms. "And now you want to talk about divorce?" His voice carried a mix of disbelief and dry humor. My voice cracked slightly. "I don't want any more complications. I'm tired. This marriage, if you can even call it, that is already over in my head." I trailed off, frustrated that even I couldn't fully explain it. He tilted his head, the afternoon sun catching the sharp angles of his jaw. "You're making it sound so simple, but I know you're lying. You always lie when it's easiest." I flinched, but there was a truth in his words I couldn't escape. It wasn't about the marriage. It was about me. About how much I wanted to run, how much I wanted to protect myself from. Whatever this was, this pull I felt every time he looked at me. The next few days were awkward. Jonathan showed up unannounced, insisting on checking on Richard and making sure he was okay. I wanted to slam doors in his face, but every time I saw him, I couldn't help the way my chest tightened. He was meticulous, confident, and frighteningly perceptive. He knew what I was feeling before I did, and that terrified me. One evening, we ended up in the kitchen together, washing dishes in silence. I caught his reflection in the window, the fading orange light illuminating his face, and my stomach did something stupid. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Something dangerously close to attraction. "You're staring," he said softly, not harshly, just a quiet observation that made my heart skip. I looked away, fumbling with the soap, but he gently took my hand, guiding it to a plate. "Stop. Just stop pretending you're not feeling something." I froze. His eyes searched mine, patient yet relentless. He wasn't asking. He was stating a fact. And damn it, I had to admit it. There was something between us. A thread of something I couldn't untangle, no matter how hard I tried. "I don't want this," I whispered. "I'm married. I'm supposed to want normal, safe divorce." "Divorce doesn't erase feelings," he replied. His voice was softer now, almost tender. "It doesn't erase what's real." And that was it. That small, almost trivial acknowledgement cut through every excuse I had. I hated that it made my chest ache. Hated that I wanted to lean into him even though I shouldn't. The days blurred together. He became a constant presence, quietly steadfast. Every small touch, brushing a hand aside, handing me a glass of water, standing a little too close, shook me more than I wanted to admit. And I realized I wasn't just angry at the world, at my life, or at the marriage. I was angry at myself for feeling something forbidden and thrilling and utterly consuming. Days turned into a slow rhythm of awkward glances and quiet moments. Jonathan never pushed, never demanded, but his presence was like gravity pulling, undeniable, constant. I tried to convince myself it was temporary, that once my divorce was finalized, I could escape this mess of emotions. Yet, every time he smiled, offered a helping hand, or lingered a little too close, the walls I'd built crumbled just a bit more. One rainy evening, the storm hitting the roof like 1,000 impatient drums, I found myself sitting on the porch, watching the wet streets reflect the orange streetlights. Jonathan came out, holding 2 umbrellas, and wordlessly handed me one. The silence between us was comfortable yet charged, like the air before lightning strikes. "You could have said no," he said quietly, though his lips curved in that infuriatingly gentle smile. "I didn't," I admitted, taking the umbrella. I can't explain why I keep letting you in." He leaned against the porch railing, looking out at the rain. "You don't have to explain. You just do." And that simple statement, that acknowledgement, felt heavier than any argument, any tension we'd ever had. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us, and I had to face that truth whether I liked it or not. Over the next few weeks, our interactions became less formal, less guarded. We cooked together, shared late-night coffees, and sometimes just sat in silence, letting the world pass by outside the window. I noticed the subtle ways he cared, how he'd remember which shirt I liked, how he'd always check the locks on the doors, how he'd quietly reassure me when I panicked about trivial things. One afternoon, after helping Richard with his paperwork, we found ourselves on the front porch again, the warm sunlight filtering through the trees. The air smelled like late summer, and I realized I hadn't noticed the smell of the world in weeks. I hadn't noticed anything except the storm of my own thoughts. "I think you're impossible," I said suddenly, trying to mask my fluttering heart with a joke. Jonathan laughed, that deep, resonant laugh that made me forget every fear I had about falling for him. "Impossible how?" "Because you make me feel things, and I hate it," I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. He stepped closer, just close enough that I could feel his warmth. "I think you like it more than you hate it," he murmured, his voice barely above the breeze. I froze, the world narrowing down to just the space between us. And then, without thinking, I leaned forward, letting my forehead rest against his chest. His hand found mine, fingers entwining naturally, like they'd always belonged together. The sound of his heartbeat beneath my ear was steady, grounding, and I realized that for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. "I don't know what comes next," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Divorce, life, everything." Jonathan tilted his head, resting his forehead against mine. "We'll figure it out, together, whatever that looks like." And somehow that was enough. The days after were softer. No dramatic confessions, no grand declarations, just a quiet, steady building of trust and closeness. We spent mornings walking through the neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing, our hands brushing until they finally intertwined naturally. We cooked meals together, laughed over burnt pancakes, and sometimes just sat in the living room, reading or watching the sunset in silence. One evening, as the sky blazed with pink and gold, Jonathan turned to me, eyes serious yet gentle. "I don't want to rush you, but I also don't want to wait forever. Care about you, about us." I swallowed hard, heart pounding, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I care too," I said finally, "more than I ever expected." He smiled, that smile that always made my knees weak, and leaned in, brushing his lips softly against mine. Not a fiery, consuming kiss, but a gentle promesia beginning, not an end. Weeks later, after my divorce was finalized, we sat on the porch, the evening breeze carrying the scent of blooming jasmine. I watched him, his suit swapped for a comfortable sweater, hair slightly tousled, eyes shining with a mix of affection and mischief. He caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Just thinking how lucky I am," I admitted, voice soft, "to have you here, with me." Jonathan's smile softened into something tender, and he reached over, taking my hand. "We saved each other in more ways than one," he said. "And now we get to choose what comes next." Together. For the first time in a long while, I didn't fight the feeling. I didn't hide behind excuses or walls. I leaned into him, letting our fingers intertwine, letting our hearts synchronize. The world around us, the house, the trees, the fading sun felt like it was holding its breath with us, allowing this small, precious happiness to exist without interruption. As the stars began to peek out from the indigo sky, Jonathan rested his head against mine, whispering, "I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." And I believed him, because sometimes life gives you chaos, heartbreak, and cliffs to dangle from. And sometimes it gives you someone who reaches out, steady and unwavering, and reminds you that love real, messy, complicated love is worth holding on to. I smiled against his chest, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known I could have. The past, the mistakes, the heartache, they were all there, but they no longer controlled me. What mattered was now. What mattered was us. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally home. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.